podcast. We're shooting live here at the Culture Mix Studios. I am your host, Shanika Natay, with Miss Michelle Wilson from the Stoop Podcast. We have a very special show here today. This is our part two, talking about mental health in the Black community and the perception of mental health when it comes to Black men. I have the pleasure of having two special guests in the studio with us today. One being Dr. Mark James. He is the Dean at Virginia Union University of undergraduate students and the head coach of football, and also the founder and CEO of the Urban Trauma Healing Institute. Yes. Also, we want to welcome back Minister Tracy Muhammad. He is the student minister under the guidance of Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at Moss 24 in Richmond, Virginia. Welcome.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having us again.
I feel like clapping. Right. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And if you like the content that you see and you're willing to, feel free to donate. The information will be listed in the comments below. All right. So today we have a topic that is very sensitive. When it comes to our community, mental health is often overlooked, right? And what we don't talk about often is the men and the perception of it. I like to start by asking, what are your thoughts, Dr. James, on the perception of mental health when it comes to Black men such as yourself?
I think that when we start to divide about mental health of Black men, we have to really identify and understand the weight of Black skin. Mm-hmm. I think many people think, when they think of what it is like to be a Black man, I think that this country and capitalism has done a great job of creating a narrative. But as a Black man, I've learned to walk with the weight of my own skin, which is a great feat within itself. When you start to look at the pressures that black men have in society, what people think we should be, what people think we should do. If I might walk into a room and they might say, oh, you should be an athlete. Mm-hmm. If I'm not rapping, dancing, singing, and bojangling, people create different narratives, and the question becomes, can I bear the weight of what others want me to be? So it creates that strain on our Black men. And then it's the interpretation. Black men, many times, don't have other people to go to that understand that level of vicarious trauma that's deep within their lives. So you get stuck on an island, like I told you before. And on that island, you're trying to find your way out. And I've worked with young men, strong young Black men, most of my life. And many of them go through that journey where they're on that island by themselves. Mm-hmm. And then when you tie in mental strain and pain from this society, you not only are on the island, you're on the island without food. And now what do you do? So it is real. Mental health, mental wealth is real in our community. We deny it because we've been taught that we should be stronger than that. But in reality, if I've carried around this weight all my life, and my ancestors have carried around this weight all my life of the jacked upness of capitalism, we all a little crazy. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's my answer to the question.
Thank you. Before we go a little bit further, I want to ask you, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you get into this field, and why is it so passionate to you?
Well, I would say by trade, I'm a Garveyite. Mm. So my mother and my family is Jamaican. And my mother moved and migrated as a nurse to England. And she was promised that they were going to be able to work in hospitals and be able to get certifications from Jamaica to England. And when she got there, what they had was factory jobs. And my mom was a revolutionary. She was one of the first Black Panthers in England. She was a part of the Brixton riots in England. And I always say when she was pregnant with me through the umbilical cord liberation, she was pouring it into me. So I've always been this way. I've always been the person that that nobody listened to when I was younger, right? I was that person that was reading books like Niggas to Gods and, Behold the Pale White Horse at 13, 14 years old while still being in the hood and being able to talk to people. And I was like that preacher, right? That holds the good book up and nobody's listening to what he's saying. So I was kind of birthed like this. I didn't choose it. It just came to me and
it chose you.
It chose me, So yeah.
Okay. All right, Minister Tracy, welcome back. Could you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
As you mentioned earlier, I'm the local representative for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam here in Richmond, Virginia. Married, father of three. Been here in Richmond for coming up on 27 years in the ministry. Born in Chicago, raised in Baltimore. Single family home. Fell in love with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1988 when I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the first time, and have been on this journey nearly 36 years now, since 1988, and just have a profound love and respect for our people. Similar to Dr. James, I remember as a child, I mean, man, maybe 5, 6, 7 years old in Baltimore, wondering why we as Black people treated each other the way we did, you know. And I remember at that age, when we lived in West Baltimore, I used to throw my toys out the window so that other children could have toys as well to play with, And when I heard the minister, well, let me say this, growing up in Chicago, Black neighborhood, when we moved to Baltimore, we lived in the hood. And then once my parents got better jobs, we moved into a predominantly white neighborhood. But I knew there was something different about the white kids, but I just couldn't figure out what it was. And then when I heard the minister and started reading the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that identified who the Caucasian was and who we are as the original people, it all just made sense. And so I'm here in the struggle with everybody else, just trying to let God use me to do what He will towards our ultimate and eventual liberation as a people. We're going to get there.
Oh, yeah. When we initially had the part one, like the conversation, it catapulted it just into a whole different level to where it's so many things to touch on. That one word trauma is so many categories that falls up under that one word, especially when it comes to us. And when we had the first episode and we were talking about, the young ladies were talking about, their experience when it comes to Black men and, just admitting the fact that they may suffer from some type of mental illness or just maybe somebody to talk to, and we thought about having a part two because the part two had to include the Black men. We couldn't have this conversation without having y'all. And the only two people actually that came to mind were the two most influential men that I know in the community that have impacted my life, and that were you two. So I thank you for being here. I
Thank you.
totally appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
I got a lot to say.
Okay.
So I am so excited to finally sit down and do a podcast with you.
You're always on the way out.
I'm always on the way out. And so one of the things that I grew a little bit about my family background. My mom and dad raised five of us. I have a sister, three brothers. And so the male influence was heavy in our family. The roles were assigned. And there was mental illness in our family that no one ever talked about. And I saw it in a couple of my cousins. I saw things that were a little different. I saw conversations being had, but the term mental illness was never used. And so, like similar to like you said when you moved into a white neighborhood, you're sitting around and something is a little different, And as a young person, it affected me because I grew up in it with it, but there were no viable solutions being talked about, being spoken. So then you had, mental illness that turned into, or I don't know if it turned into, but it represented itself with drug abuse, alcoholism, and all of those external things that sometimes mental health can bring. I don't know if it's a direct correlation. However, that's how it showed up in our family. There was no who was going to be the first one to say, hey, I think you need help. Those conversations, especially in the Black community, I never heard them coming up, and I'm 62. Never heard those things happen.
Because we were taught to just pray it away.
Right. Now, fast forward now here today, I noticed that there's this love-hate relationship within our Black community with Black men and Black women. Mm-hmm. Blows me away. When are
That's by design.
Yeah.
That's by design. Yeah.
Yes. When is it definitely? So when do we begin the work? How do we begin the work? Have we begun the work of saying, let's put our weapons down, let's get together and identify the things that are troubling us in our community, including mental health, and what is the work that needs to be done? Where do we go? What do we do? How do we help one another? Can we help one another? Are there things that are just broken in our community and it's just going to stay broke?
Dr. James?
I think that the evidence is there.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a circle. Mm-hmm. I think the evidence is out there to answer your question. For example, many times it seems that we don't know the way, mm-hmm. but there are brothers and sisters that have come and have done it. For instance, mm-hmm. I'm probably the only non-Muslim brother in America that loves Brother Farrakhan the way that I do, mm-hmm. right? And I'm talking about since I've been a teenager, mm-hmm. because he's one of, if you show me another that never took the money, spoke the truth, mm-hmm. and lived and walked without fear. Mm-hmm. So there's examples of it, mm-hmm. of how people within their religious organization, like my brother's a part of, that can change communities, mm-hmm. that can go into a dark prison cell and change a man or woman's life, mm-hmm. and create positivity. I think when you really look at it, it's not that we don't know how. Mm-hmm. It's that it's not cost effective to do what we know we need to do. And even my brothers and sisters in the churches, it's not that they didn't know how. The churches was the corner post of the civil rights movement. Yes, sir. So it's that we have lost the way to know how. Mm-hmm. And we've traded it in for the white picket fence and the nice car, being married in a great community where nobody talks to you, but you're happy. And you got that job that you're 9 to 5 in the cubicle, and nobody remembers their responsibility of the community. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they don't know. I'm going to say that again. Yeah. They do know. It's been done already. So it's not a matter of can we do it. It's not a matter of will we do it. Are we moving to it? Is that we're ignoring it. We're ignoring the pain. Mm-hmm. We're ignoring that We're bleeding internally and externally. And we just keep moving on. I said before, and I knew it was probably, I said it in the airport, I know you guys were like, whoa. Our problem now that we must embrace it. Our problem is us. The system is not going to change.
No.
The system was created to create the us. So now what do? We've got to go back to what we did within the system when the system was even worse than it is now, and regain our strength and regain our community.
Absolutely.
And until we stop turning away and hiding behind titles, I'm going to say this and then I'll give my brothers a shot. I believe they did a study in 2014. I think U.S. News, and it said that at that point in time, we had more black politicians than we ever have. Now we have more than that. But we have less control and positive change that trickles all the way down to black folks. You can have a black president, but we haven't seen it. You had it in D.C., but we ain't seen it in Gilpin Court. We ain't seen it in Wickham. And until we start really barking back at people that's supposed to represent us, no, you don't represent me. No, you can't represent me. Because you look the other way to go where you're going. You got to be a soldier. And that's the main problem, sister. Our representation, you're a rapper, you're a dancer, you're an athlete, you can't represent me. You can't represent my people. And the voices that do represent our people without fear, they castigate them and put them and say that they're, I grew up where they took Farrakhan and they took Jesse Jackson. They took Malcolm and they took Martin. They took W.E.B. Du Bois. You get where I'm going?
Exactly.
The system never changed. We just looked a different way.
And it pitted ourselves against one another.
That's our great.
And it did exactly what it was designed to do. And you're right. We do know that.
We know it.
We know it. So how do you bring it forward?
Because we're too comfortable being uncomfortable, it seems.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to, when I look at my brothers, and I would say certain events happen in their lives, right?
Your biological brothers.
Yes.
Okay.
They had, losing spouses, children, certain situations in life. And it's almost like when you go to approach and say, hey, do you need help with this? Do you need counseling? It's almost like
they shut down.
You're talking mess to them. And yes, they shut down and you don't know what you're talking about and leave it alone. And it's because it's an uncomfortable space.
Your original question was, where do we start? Well, we've started right here. A couple of weeks ago, I had said that the problem, I say it sometimes in my lectures, the problem is in the mirror. I'm looking at the problem every day when I look in the mirror. But the good thing is, so is the solution. And so you've heard people say, we are the answer to our own problems. It's not necessarily going to be some benevolent Caucasian or someone outside of our community coming in riding a white horse to save us. And if we have any illusions that those who brought our ancestors over here, who are the oppressors and continue to oppress, even right up until this very moment, 2024, we're living in Alice in Wonderland. We cannot look outside of ourselves to do for ourselves. Our solutions, our problems, one of the simplest phrases that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us was, do for self and kind. Do for myself and my kind. Every community focuses on its own. We are a people who have been stripped. Name, God, culture, religion, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So mental health crises that we live under every day, that's the result of not having the knowledge of who we are. I'm glad that this discussion of mental health is coming to the forefront in our community. And it's good and it's on time and it's appropriate because we grew up, I might be the oldest one in here, but I remember growing up where no one wanted to be labeled, oh man, he crazy, you know, because that brother may have acted a little different or what we call or thought was strange.
Right.
And so we're labeled, you know, bro, you crazy. No, this brother just doesn't have the knowledge of who he is, you know. And so the Muslim Muhammad teaches that the knowledge of God and the knowledge of self are one and the same. The more knowledge I have of myself, the more knowledge I have of God, and vice versa, you know. And so with this knowledge, you know, the teachings, and I can only speak to what has helped me, you know. I can only speak to what had solved I'm not saying I'm fully healed because it's a process, you know. And every day as Black men, as Dr. James alluded to, when we go out into this society, we deal with macro and micro aggressions, you know. And so as a Black man, just trying to navigate through society, you know, is a 24-hour job. And the only solace I find is when I come back home and walk through my doors and my wife or my children, my grandchildren, or if I'm at the temple with my brothers and my sisters, I'm at peace. I know I'm in a safe land. You know, I don't have to worry about those macro and micro aggressions that I deal with when I go to Lowe's to get my materials or just out in society in general. And so, you know, this is how we're going to heal each other. You know, these little fireside chats, not through, you know, like I say, others outside of our community. We're going to have to heal ourselves.
And, you know, we have to be conscious of that, men and women, Black men and women, of the fact that we have to heal ourselves and that nobody is going to come. And in a lot of different areas, I know that when I had my restaurant, something as simple as the Food Network approached me to do a show. And just little things. They wanted, the show wanted me to be depleted and downtrodden and just on the brink of failure, you know, in order for them to come in and redo us and redo the million, save the day. That messaging got to me. I didn't like that. And I said, I don't feel good. No, he's not. That's, you know. So I declined the show. You know, and other things had happened that helped me decline the show. You know, I felt very uncomfortable about that premise being there. We're going to come in, and you know, it's a white show. We're going to come in
better than you.
Yes, and we're going to, and nothing that you have established is good.
Though your vision, your energy, was the driving force to create this.
And so when they got there and looked around and interviewed my staff, they weren't getting the negative comments. They weren't getting the trouble that they needed. So they asked me to talk to my staff to muck it up a little bit. I was like, man, no, come on, you know. And it represented how we're treated in society, how we treat ourselves and one another. You know, it was a fine example to me of that. And you're right. There's nobody going to come get us.
No.
Or at least save us.
Can I say something to that? And I want to make sure that everything I say is aligned with truth. And some things are uncomfortable. In the behavioral health field and in the Department of Corrections, I wrote a paper one time that said double incarceration is the only place where a Black person can work in as many hours as they want. In the behavioral health field, mental health field, they allow us to get these certifications, and then we start billing Medicaid and become millionaires. But again, Black mental health is our responsibility. white folks in America have their own second Civil War coming.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be our own responsibility. And we can't be predatory to the job that has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the influence that a lot of enrichment alone, enrichment alone, the mental health companies that I hear, that if they were truly trying to move and make a major difference, and we all know, if they were just trying to make a major difference, imagine what could be done, okay? And many times it takes finance to be able to get these things done, but mental health counseling is not a European science. This is a village science.
Right.
It's an African science. We've always defended community.
Mm-hmm.
So as you look at my brother's community from a religious standpoint, they defend each other and protect and insulate each other. He just said he feels comfortable when he's surrounded by his brothers and sisters. The first sign of mental health is to be comfortable.
Go ahead, man.
We are not comfortable, and then we're trained to be pariahs on the weak.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we are. We got to be very honest. And that's where the true change comes. When we start that level of honesty and we really start to speak about it. In that paper, I did the research at the time in Richmond. The person that was over the juvenile jail was black.
Mm-hmm.
99% of his staff was black. 100% of the residents were black. You can work as much hours as you want. What difference could you have made with what you did?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of making money, there's things that we can't look past. And just like I said, in double incarceration and the Medicaid business, the Medicaid business right now, what could we do? And that's what we need to really start talking about. What are we doing that's jacked up? To be able to get clarity to what can we do to build. Because we ain't built past the first floor. We have tore down all the floors that our ancestors have died for. It's a real trauma. When you see people running around here, I won't say the term I was going to say, but bought and sold for nickels. The real prostitutes. Prostitutes that walk on the street are prostitutes.
Go ahead, Doc.
The real prostitutes are the people that walk around in the suit and ties and lie to us and buy us chicken dinners and then for us to go vote for them. And then you don't know them when you're in the boardroom. So I'm a little passionate about it because to me, every community, every other community, the Asian community, you know what they do? They talk about helping each other.
Yep.
The Hispanic community, South Side. What do? They all move in one house. They buy a pickup truck first. They get the landscaping business second. Then somebody's got a painting business. And then somebody's got a construction business. All of a sudden, somebody owns a construction network with the label to be able to go on a construction site. And I'm going to stop in a second. But go on a construction site. Find me a black person. When you go on a construction site, there's Hispanic men and women.
Yep.
Yep. So going back to what he said about community and acceptance, that's what you got to really talk about. Why are we not a community? When everybody else built their community off of us. The Asian man, the Middle Eastern man, build their lifestyle off of us.
And in our neighborhood selling their wares.
There you go.
Yeah.
Malt liquor ain't the danger. The danger is that they have been given money to go sell to us and be in our neighborhoods. And guess what we do? We buy it.
Yeah.
And we don't build our own because we don't have community anymore. And we got to be honest. We got to be honest. A man without a community is homeless. We got to be honest. So I am that. I'm telling you, when I start talking, so you guys are warming me up. That's my brother. No, I am that Garveyite. What I'm saying is, it has been done. It's being done now. You know what I mean? It's that, are we willing to stand up and are we willing to join other brothers and sisters that are doing it? You know what I mean? And are we willing to absorb the cost of it? Because the cost of standing up for the weight and truly carrying the weight of your black skin, it's for them to devalue and take everything you have from you. And that can happen just like that at any moment to any one of us. But you got to be willing to die before you can live.
I'm glad you said the word uncomfortable. This is what this podcast is about. This is why I created it. I always call it a safe space to have beautiful but uncomfortable conversations unapologetically when it comes to our community, because when it comes to things that not only influence but affect our community, and I'm all about, you got to shake that surface. Another thing that you said, far as the prostitutes, and that is so true. That is so true. And when it comes to outsiders of the community, I truly believe that they sit over in their own countries and they study us. They study us, so therefore they know how to cater and know how to market to what they think our needs are. And they make money based off of that. My next question is as far as the environment, because the environment plays a big part in our mental health, right? When we go outside based off of what we see, what we are involved in, whether it's to our own will or against our will. What do you say about how the environment influences our mental health, especially Black men's mental health? Dr. James?
Oh, okay. I was going to yield to
if you want,
the minister.
Minister Tracy.
Environment plays a very heavy role. You know, what we see, what we hear, what we breathe, what we eat on a daily basis. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I think I touched on how, you know, here in Richmond, I know certainly in Baltimore where I grew up, and Chicago as well, every city I've been in, you can go to any housing project in any city in America, and you can see second and third and fourth generational brothers and sisters who may live in public housing. And so this cycle of 10, 20, 30, 40 years of seeing cages, not having supermarkets in your neighborhood, what they call now food deserts.
Right. Yes.
You know, where you go in and our brothers and sisters are eating Doritos with MSG and not juice but drinks. Where those, like you say, outside of our community have come into our community like bloodsuckers and selling our people the worst of everything. And at the end of every day, taking a bag of money out of our community back out to where they live. But the human being is impressed by the five senses: what we see, what we hear, what we taste, you know, what we feel. And so if we're living, and the social scientists will tell you, you know, the human being needs space. You know, there's a certain amount of feet that the human being needs to feel comfortable. And so when you put people in basically cages, you know, and expect them to act a certain way, contrary to what that environment dictates they're gonna act like. If you got people living over top of you, right next to you, right under you, and every time you come out the door, there's someone right there. When you open the door and you smell urine or pork or liquor or blunt, you know, all of that stuff impresses upon the human being, you know. When you're being called the N-word, you know, or if you're calling someone the N-word.
Greeting.
Yeah, my my nigga. So it plays a very significant role. Environment and society shapes us and molds us. Going to school, whether it's public school or private school, where you're not being taught a knowledge of yourself.
Right.
We're being learned and taught Eurocentric civilization. And so I remember, and I'll defer to my brother, I remember in 8th grade, my 8th grade history teacher, a black woman named Miss Magruder, was teaching us history. And the history went back to slavery. And I remember as an 8th grader, I was turned off by that, to know that my people were slaves, but not being taught any of the rich history
Before
of
that.
Egypt and Kush, all of the great ancient African civilizations that we built. The pyramids, they didn't teach none of that.
The educational system.
Exactly. It was Eurocentric. And when it came to us, you all were slaves, and that's where y'all started. Mm-hmm. And I remember in 8th grade sitting there and the light just going out, So it impacts us substantially. Environment.
I'll add to that. Think about it. Think about that picture that they started our history with, when we were all chained up side to side on the ship. That every black person thought that was the beginning, right, of black history. Started. The environment is what capitalism has created. The piss, the smell, the whole, everything that we think is a hood is an echo from capitalism. Capitalism does not work unless you create a lower society. So all of it is been created. Class. And even racism is a created structure, right? Because they had to differentiate the white slaves from the black slaves and create a system that you still see now. Who do you see running around going crazy, ready to burn down the world for politicians that seem to be leaned in another way, right? Are those who are what? Poor white people. Okay? So nothing has changed. That's why it's funny, because it's systematic. You look at Gilpin Court. Gilpin Court is right next to Jackson Ward. The thriving Jackson Ward.
And it's a historical landmark named after a black man.
Right. So what do? I build a community of poverty next to it. And what does it do? And then I'm going to build 95 through it. And then what does it do? It creates what we see. Yeah. The problem is not with a Gilpin Court or a Jackson Ward. It's not with that. It's with the people that look the other way. I was sitting in one of the tenant association manager's house, and she said to me, Minister, she said, this house was passed down to me 45 years ago. The concrete apartment. 5 o'clock, 5:30. If you go to the average apartment in the Big Six, you'll see them opening the window and putting AC units in the window, because they can't have them in the daytime unless you have an illness. Wow. So the system is protected by the system. And then they give us jobs to lead the system. So again, we have to talk about the solutions. But in talking about the solutions, we got to identify the system. The environment is an echo of the system. Everything this brother said is created. The malt liquor created from the beer that, hey, we don't want them drinking Heineken, right? We want them drinking malt liquor in the community. W.E.B. Du Bois spoke of this. He said that every other civilization has made it their decision to make money off of black people in the community, except us. So, listen, I was in a place called Shenzhen, China, and I went to go order some fried rice. And they looked at me like I was crazy. They said, what? We don't eat that here. Translated, we don't eat that here. I looked at them.
No.
So what they serve here, they don't eat in their country.
Now, watch how powerful this is. They come and adopt and adapt to our community, and it's like they almost take a survey. What do you like? And they create your common taste buds that go from generation to generation, and on every corner is a taste of China. And nothing that they eat is what they sell. Isn't that what has happened to us since we arrived here? Is that we have been taught and given stuff that ain't good for us. If you give me free education, there's a reason you're giving it to me for free. Because you're putting in that educational curriculum what will systematically create a lower level thinking. This is what I'm going to say, and I'll shut up. It's just like you say, I have to say that because I'll go on. It's just like you say about my minority. The average black person says they are a minority. But I go to Panama and I see a brother and sister darker than me speaking Spanish. I was in Paris and I went through and I told the guy, drop me off. They got 2 districts there that are all black. I said, drop me off. And I walked all 2 districts. Let me tell you something. The thinking is minor. And that is the whole thing, that's what racism is. And when you elevate your mind to understand that the reason why somebody calls you minor because they know the major within you. And they know the history that they've blinded you from. And if you ever remove that veil from yourself, you will know who truly you are. You hear my brother say the knowledge of self. That's so powerful. If the average black person know who they were, man, we wouldn't be able to walk out there and not see the magnificence of change. But it's because they're blind with 3 eyes and can't see. That's the problem. That's why our environment is the way it is. That's why it's so toxic. That's why they got us pent up in the big 6 and all that. They got us pent up. And guess what? They're coming for the land. So guess what? What's going to happen to us? So we got to think ahead. If we don't change from the inside out, what we're about to face is something worse than our forefathers and sisters had to face. Because now you don't have nowhere to go. That's a serious thing. So your environment in 10 years is going to change. Even more drastic.
I've seen it change here in Richmond just with gentrification over the years. And there's and to go to your point about the food desert, there's no reason not to have a supermarket in the black neighborhood. There's no reason not to have it. And evident by gentrification, because as soon as that comes, guess what comes with it? You get the supermarket. You get
all your amenities.
All of the things are met. Everything, speed bumps, so the children,
Dog,
the whole everything. Painted doors of paint, and you can tell when it's coming. I can drive down the street. I was driving down Broad Rock, and I said, "Oh yeah, they painting the door pink and green, and
here we go."
I mean, here we go.
You know when I noticed it? When I see them out taking pictures of the land. I'm like, oh, they about to start. They surveying the land. They about to start it.
I wanted to share a story before I forget it. And it goes to something Dr. James said a few minutes ago about the powers that be not really desiring to see change. And so prior to COVID, we met with Mayor Stoney. Myself, Brother Mike, you were with us. A couple other brothers. We went to his office. This was before COVID. And we presented a program that we wanted to institute in the Big 6, starting in Mosby. And it was called Respect for Life, Manhood, Womanhood Training. And basically, we would go in, it was an 8-week program. Our sisters would go in and work with the sisters in the community, brothers with the brothers. And we were going to pay for all the necessary clothing, study material, everything. And as we talked with the mayor, he asked me, he said, well, Mr. Minister Muhammad, how much are you all asking? I said, Mr. Mayor, we're not asking for anything. This is what we do. We just want access to the community building, in each one of the big six. We just need somewhere to facilitate these programs. We're not asking for no money. We're going to pay for everything. And he said, wow. He said, because everybody else comes asking for money if they want to do any programs in the community. So no, we're not here asking for no money. We're not here with our hat in our hand, begging.
Right.
We love our people, and we want to help change the reality of the condition that our people live in, starting up here. And once we can connect with them mentally and spiritually, they'll take it from there. But we wanted to be the catalyst to just start a change and to also help stop some of the murders and the killing. Because if we save one Black life, like Dr. King said, if you save one life, it is as if you have saved all of humanity. So we left out of there and we never heard from him. Never. And I saw him on another occasion. He never brought it up. And I said to myself, those who sit in these positions of authority, do you really want to see our people better? I mean, only they can answer that. I was not, to be honest with you, I was not surprised. Because I know since I've been here for the past 27 years, nothing has changed in the Big Six. The tenant association leaders that Dr. James talked about, we presented it to them first. They were like, please, come on. RRHA, we approached them first because they actually look over, the Big Six. And they said they were cool with it, but didn't move out. And that's how we eventually ended up going to Mayor Stoney's office. And after that experience, I said to myself, these people talk a good game, but at the end of the day, it's about a paycheck. And to me, and I say this humbly, I think they could care less about what happens in these public housing.
And so, for those who may not know, what is the Big Six?
Mosby, Blackwell, Wickham, Fairfield, Creighton, Gilpin. Is that So
the largest on the Eastern Seaboard. The largest set of projects on the Eastern Seaboard.
Wow.
Because in Baltimore, they've torn down most of those projects. Chicago, same thing. They've torn down most of them. But here in Richmond, they're still here.
If I could, brother.
We've been living.
When I was coming up, my brother studied the teachings. We were raised Catholic, Black Catholic, in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Catholic. Yeah.
That was rough. And my dad had a fit when he found out. And I would sit, and there was a corner store around the corner that had the magazines. I would go around and get the paper. And I would look for something so that I could have a conversation with my brother because I wanted to be cool, right? So I would look.
It's in Philly.
Yeah, in Philly.
Yeah.
I would sneak home come home and sneak in. But we couldn't talk about it until this day. Do you know about the Move people? You ever heard of the Move people?
Yeah.
So my brother, I had pictures of my brothers down there giving them watermelons. We lived 4 blocks from the second uprising.
Oh, wow.
On 58th or 59th or something like that in Philadelphia. My dad was on top of the roof with his gun.
Wow.
And my mom, I was in college at that time. My mom called me, "Talk to your father. He's on the roof picking them off." But the teaching and everything, and like you said, if you're told the truth, and culturally sometimes we're afraid of that. Like true. My dad was, hell no,
Well, I felt like that after the mayor did not respond. And I say this humbly. I said, man, You probably just one of those scared Negroes, man. You know what I mean? I'm not surprised. I'm really not. You know? And, we were not, like I say, it's not about going in and making nobody other than what they already are, what they want to be. It's to go in and to share knowledge.
But do you know something, brother? When most people see the great Minister Farrakhan, they really don't see his religion. They fear his manhood. Mm-hmm. They fear the voice of truth.
Yes, sir.
So we were taught coming up that voice of truth, don't listen to that. Mm. And it translates into political favor. So I would tell you this. I knew when you started your story, what the ending of your story was. Because the fact is that we I could only say it one way. We are more inclined to be sambos and dance and sing and catch footballs and dunk basketballs, right? Mm-hmm. Than to actually sit and just speak the truth and not be afraid. That's why you got to admire. Mm-hmm. For a white man to tell you you're nothing, but knows your history more than you know your history. Mm-hmm. And then continue it and create a system to manage it. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to know your history, and then you're afraid of those that speak your history. Yeah. And those that speak your history get isolated away from the group. So, brother, no, they're not going to do that because it's too much like right, and it's about building community, and it's about creating massive change. Mm-hmm. Massive incarceration is supported. If I went out there and did 40 years in prison, I could come out here and start a nonprofit and probably get a $5 million grant from the government. It's out here in Richmond. Mm-hmm. You got guys that did 30 years that's making more money than the people that went and got PhDs. Why? Because we got to be honest. We don't want the truth. Correct?
It's a fact.
So when people see y'all brothers, oh man, hold on. And it's easier to hide in the bosom of a church, okay, where the pastor is driving the brand new Mercedes Benz. It's more feasible to hide and still go on both sides. Listen to Farrakhan or listen to a Garvey, listen Haile Selassie. I'm gonna listen to that home. And let me see what he say. But we still live in fear. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Fear. It's a mind killer. It's a tiny evil that disintegrates us from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And that's our problem. We scared, man. We scared to lose the car. We scared to lose the house. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. My family's from Jamaica. I say to my family, my kids all the time. I said, listen, I will never live in fear. Right. Dang, what you talking about? I'll go pick mangoes in Jamaica and live in Jamaica and be free. Mm-hmm. We desire not to be free. Mm-hmm. So now when you tie in mental health to that, you're a double bondage. Because we just desire not to be free. Being able to hide from the truth, you're in bondage.
And that's because we don't understand the leverage that we have, and those that do understand the leverage that we have, they choose not to exercise it. It was something that you said that it made me think about an episode that we had with Sean Stevenson. When you talked about you can work as many hours as you want in the prison system. And Sean actually said the same thing. And to quote his exact words were, prison is the black man's Section 8.
Wow.
And I thought that was deep.
Whereas
it strikes nerves, but it's when you think about it, it's the truth. My next question is what do you both think about how the evolution of music has played a part when it comes to our mental state in the community?
I know we're doggone this.
Go ahead, speak freely. This is brutally opinionated.
You touched on it a little bit about the census and what you hear and
well, the word, the vibration, changes things. that word placed in the atmosphere and in the universe. And so, unfortunately, there are those outside of our community who have co-opted many of our talented artists who have the natural gift and skill and talent to sing, to rap, to perform, to entertain. There are those outside of our community. I'll give you an example. Like when I came in the nation in '88, KRS-One, Public Enemy, most of it was conscious rap. And I mean, it was uplifting the Black community and raising the consciousness in the Black community. Well, some outside of our community saw that and felt threatened by that and were able to go into the hip hop and the rap and turn it. And matter of fact, Brother Dimitri talked about that Sunday.
Mm-hmm. He did.
How I think it was in that 91 or
that
99,
right?
It shifted. It shifted. And out of nowhere, gangster rap, came on the scene. That was not necessarily our doing, but those who control the music industry. And so the conscious rap, if you were a conscious rapper, you couldn't get a contract, RCA. You couldn't go down and get a contract because what you were rapping about, that's not what they wanted out there into the public. They wanted to see, with the videos, our sisters half naked, the brothers talking about, making it rain, bees and hoes and stuff like that. People are profiting off of that. And so it was turned. And that was not by accident. All of that was coordinated.
I have 2, maybe 3 more questions. I want to shift it to you first, Dr. James. And then I have a couple more questions before we close out. What is your take on it? I see the deep stuff.
Arsenio Hall was at the top of his game in the
80s. Come on.
Good episode. Yeah.
They told Arsenio to not bring the Honorable Minister on.
Yeah.
And he had enough guts.
Thank you.
To do it.
Shout out to Arsenio Hall. Yep. Paved the way for this right here.
Which sacrificed his career. And many Black people don't even honor that about him. When I see him, I don't even see his comedic side.
No.
I see his sacrifice.
Right.
So let me tell you about these rappers.
Oh, it's coming.
Which I call the lyrical pimps. Master P, so many people died behind his music when he put it out. And he got a master of MBA from LSU.
Is that honorary?
No. Many of these rappers that are rapping this false game, Notorious B.I.G., man, his mother was a Jamaican nurse. Nurses back then were the most successful people. Where Black women could accelerate, but he rapping about selling dope on the corner. What's the brother with the beard that has the car? Rick Ross was a correction officer. Right. Okay, he wasn't selling no dope. Right. See, we live in a fantasy, and it pays to sell the fantasy, and we'd rather be the prostitute and the pimp. Well, I wrote something before called the 3 Ps: prostitute, pimp, and preachers. And we don't have no problem prostituting our people as long as we could preach. So let me tell you, when it comes to these rappers and these athletes that are showing our young people this falsehood of what it means to be Black, again, I go back to, how do you carry this Black skin? Do you know what the weight of it is? And they rap about these different things, and then we buy into it. And the female rappers got to be naked, right? And they got to go against each other. The male rappers got to portray an image. You've got Drake and all these sides going against each other.
Diss track.
It's not about the music. It's the imagery. So if I show the imagery of division and I put it on a track, you're going to listen to, because here's the truth. More white kids listen to rap than black kids.
Yep.
Nobody likes it. No, but the white kids are listening to it for, okay, that's entertaining. The black kids are looking for it for, let me put this gun in my pocket.
Taking life, yeah.
You mentioned KRS-One. KRS-One walked up behind me on my campus.
Chris.
That's right. And we brought him there, right? Ain't nobody, he ain't need no security. He didn't need any protection. You know why? Because his music ain't strong enough for especially this generation, because it's speaking too much of the truth. So he had no fear to worry about. And I'm going to tie this back to what you said about the politician. Have you ever wondered why black politicians can go into communities and have the fried fish and chicken dinners with no security, but as soon as they get elected to office, they got security down because of the lies that they have done and the untruth that they live. So I just want to say, it's going to take a generation of honest people to stand up to the music. If you look what the responsibility of the music was with the graduation slayings, those guys were gangster rap kind of. What's that new rap? What's that
drill?
Drill, but they're not drill. The next one. What's the next one that's after drill?
Wesley?
I don't know. Name, what is it?
Garbage. They garbage. I call it garbage. But they were leading rappers and they were rapping and going back and forth, and it turned out to be a massacre. So no, I'm not for it. They could take their rap and they could stuff it. It doesn't have the truth in it. Those that rap about truth don't make it to the limelight. And we as people, if you've got kids, you have a responsibility to what that young person listens to. Don't tell me about I'm just going to open up the computer and leave it there. You're responsible, Minister.
Yes, sir.
You're responsible.
Yes, sir.
You ever seen a seed not responsible for its own seed? You're responsible.
My next two, racism, police brutality, plays a very, very significant part. Can you both tell me some of the experiences or one of the experiences that you have had with racism?
Damn. One thing without it.
I know this will go on this will go on for a few hours. So I mean, yeah, if we could just
go ahead, Doctor. I'll say this real quick.
Talk about
okay,
maybe one or two experiences that you may have had.
I'll just give you a story when I was 5 years old and I turn it over. I was 5 years old in a fish and chip shop in England when I was a little kid. And a Pakistani girl was holding her mom's hand. And I was holding my mom's hand. And that Pakistani girl spit in my face and said, "You black kid." And at 5 years old, I had to make a decision. Do I tell my mom, who I know what she was going to do, or do I internalize it? And I internalized it. And I've never been the same since. I don't have to think if racism is real or not. Racism was tailor-made for my skin. So I don't know life without it. Whether I'm going into a restaurant and the average white woman clutches her pocketbook when I might have more money than her, whether I am a big black man walking in and somebody, until they hear me speak, thinks I'm a dumb jock. There is no life without racism for a black person. They might act it. But from 5 years old, it was surgically placed within me to understand that it exists as a kid. And even when I talk about it, I could feel the spit on my face. So, yeah, man, it's real. It's real.
Definitely. And the reason I asked that question is because you have a large percent of people have people today who feels like it does not exist no more.
Well, the
Or it's gotten better.
told that.
Or
The propaganda is that we're going to take racism doesn't exist,
right.
and then some are buying and feeding into that.
Or it's not as bad as it was.
It's
to me,
hilarious.
it's compared to the stories that I have heard from my grandparents and the racism that I experienced as a kid coming up in elementary school. I'm standing at the bus stop and I'm talking to a young white girl that was in my class. And she was asking me something about, and I was in 5th grade. She was asking me something about the work assignment that the teacher gave us. And her brother walked up to me and said he don't want any niggas talking to his sister, and he kicked me. And I tried to beat his name off of his birth certificate. I did. I did. I succeeded. I did.
The one that comes to my mind, I remember in '88. Well, I was a union carpenter apprentice from '84 to '88 in Baltimore, and I was in local 544, which was the black local. Mm-hmm. There was 101, that was the white boys. 544 was the brothers. And so I remember I was either a 3rd or 4th year apprentice. And the journeyman I was working with, older brother, we were working, and on that particular job, they placed this young white boy named Mike, I'll never forget it, and put him with us. So we trained him. We had to. He was an apprentice. He was a 1st year apprentice. And the way the union is, when these new apprentices come, the journeyman or the 3rd or 4th year apprentice, it is our job to train them. Boom, we trained him for a couple of jobs. Fast forward maybe 2 or 3 years later, we're on a job site, and the same white boy, Mike, came on the job site, and he had the white hat on, which was for foreman, well, for supervisor. And he had the blueprints. And the rest of us, we were either wearing blue hard hats or orange, depending on what trade you were in. But the white hard hat symbolized the foreman. You had the blueprints. They never gave the brothers the blueprints or the white hat. But this white boy who we trained, as soon as he became a journeyman, they gave him the white hat and the blueprints. And I stood there and I was like, that's racism. Mm-hmm. That was racism.
Blatant. Yeah.
Blatant. We trained him. When he came, he didn't know blank from blank, and I'll leave the blanks blank. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But in my mind, I stood and I said, man, this is what racism looks like. And so even the fact that I was in Local 544, Local 544 was set up because back in the day in Baltimore, when buildings were being built and the foundation was being laid in the ground, once the footings were, the concrete was poured, and once that job got to eye level, all the black carpenters would get laid off. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was there was a family of black carpenters named the Glenn brothers. They left and started Local 544. Mm-hmm. And so as an apprentice in Baltimore, when you went down and signed up for the local, you were basically placed in that local based upon your ethnicity. Mm. Racism, So that was a later one, but the ones you're talking about in elementary school, I got too many of those. So, but yeah, that's. But when I saw this boy with the heart, I was like, wow, we trained this white boy. I know he don't know nothing. Mm-hmm. I can't say he don't know nothing because we trained him, but I was
before you trained him, he didn't know.
We saw him when he was green as grass. And we actually took the time, to teach him and train him basic carpentry, But the part that the brothers, they never gave us the blueprints. Mm-hmm. Never. You never saw the brothers walking around with the white hat,
Did you want to add anything?
No, not me. I got too many.
And I think
I'm going to let you know I'm going to use your story right there because there's a lot of symbolism in that.
Okay.
The white hat,
The white hat.
the
Right.
blueprint,
Mm-hmm.
and not being able, the brothers not being able to see the blueprint
Mm-hmm.
of how to build
Mm-hmm.
or what to build. And then when you said about the eye level,
Mm-hmm.
soon as I can see it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take it away from you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's all history.
Mm-hmm.
That's our history.
Yeah.
then when you look at the police brutality, like the
Hmm.
the public lynchings, basically, is what they are when you see them on TV. But my last question is politics. I get so sick of both parties pandering to us.
Mm.
And they never do what they say they're going to do. And that's because we don't hold them accountable. I don't think it's any consequences that comes with the black community when it comes to politicians. How do y'all feel about that?
Go ahead, Doc. It's like looking how you raise your family in the latest rap song. And you look into the rap song on how you're going to raise your family. Understand and listen to me clearly. Black politicians are procured from a young age and designed to be able to speak the rhetoric that is wanted by greater society. You choose to either be on the left or you be on the right. If you're on the right, and this is how confusing it is, if you're on the right, you're with those who believe one side of the fence, but with a side of the fence that supported in a greater way slavery. If you're on this side of the fence, they say that they're conservative on this side of the fence, but the conservative for who? They're not conservative for us because in reality, what politics is the fear of losing what you have.
Yep.
That's why you see all the policy is to be able to keep the rich rich and the poor poor. I'm going to say this and give you an example. When you look at politics, and before that you said about police brutality, go back to there's a book called Without Sanctuary.
Oof.
And go back to where the police, which were those vigilantes, burned our bodies till our skin ripped off. With the men, they would cut off our private parts and put it in our mouth.
Doc, before you go any further, the book he's referencing, I got it. You can't even read it. We can't even get through it. My eyes are watering.
Yeah, I noticed your reaction when
you can't even get through it.
But that's
go ahead, Doc.
That's the answer. The real politics is those people that watch the skin fall off of those bodies. Politics has never involved us. They sold postcards. They sold postcards. And we sit up there thinking that we're either side. And what we are is a vote. See, listen, man. Listen. It's a system. And you always have to respect your oppressor, or you will become the new oppressor. It is a system. The system has procured the new black, which is the Hispanic. Okay? The preferred minority is the Asian.
Absolutely.
But the Hispanic is the new black in America.
Yep.
So now we don't have to cater to what you need anymore. The average politician doesn't have to go into the black community and kiss the babies. Because now we're raising up financially. It's called soft and hard skills. Right. Those Hispanic brothers are coming with what you call hard skills, which people that look like me and you have always made our money from the ground. So now we don't make our money from the ground now. Now we are trying to be more like those that already have, and we don't have it. So when you look at the setup of everything that I said, the real politics are in those postcards from Without Sanctuary where people, kids, whole families came out to see your skin burn off your body.
Spectacle.
That's exactly what politics are. It's a spectacle. And you're just caught up in it, thinking that because a black man made it to the White House, he was going to make your house the right house. Nah, Jack. That's not how it goes. That's how it was never intended. All of those people were procured and designed. Obama was procured and designed in the basements of Harvard, skull and bones. Selected.
Yep.
I hate to say it, brother. Jesse Jackson was selected.
Yeah, politicians are bought.
Okay? They were selected. The people that aren't selected aren't accepted. That's why we were raised up believing that Farrakhan, the Honorable Farrakhan, was bad. Imagine if a generation of people listened to 5% of what he was trying to say and asked one critical question. What is everybody afraid of every time he speaks?
Right.
I'm not looking for a politician that everybody clap after they speak. I'm looking for somebody that's going to say something and the room get quiet because they speaking the truth. So me personally, I don't cater to politics. I don't believe they exist for us. Now, guess what? Our ancestors died out there on the I have a dream step trying to be able to vote. But they fooled us to believe that the real change happens at the president level. The real change happens at the local elected level.
That's right.
And who are we electing? Your cousin, his cousin. They're being elected.
And some of them feel entitled. Some of our own politicians, they feel entitled because they have a family history of.
They were selected.
Exactly.
And
I have entitled to the black.
I have people I know, and it becomes a joke. They're friends, but it becomes a joke because, again, preachers, pimps, and prostitutes, they all share one thing. They're all trying to get something from nothing. And that's what happens to us. We get caught up in that, and we get caught up in who's running for president, and your block jacked up. Turn on CNN and going crazy. Oh, they better not mess with my man Biden. But nobody can't walk out your house, out your block at 8:30. Come on, man. Your family ain't got no money. They ain't got no intention, no education.
You're not important.
Nah, it's not real. It's not real, sister. So we got to call out what's not real. We got to call it out. It's our job. That's what you're doing now, right? That's what we're doing. Call it out and have no fear. Because if the greatest thing you have to fear is death,
you already did.
And I ain't never seen nobody avoid it.
Nope.
All are walking to die. So if we all are eventual to where we fear, what the hell are we doing? Why not live?
Yeah.
Minister Tracy, you want to add to that before we close out?
No, that's beautiful.
Okay.
When Brother Mark, I was just, that book,
Painful.
It's painful. You can't even get through it. But we encourage people to go get it. After reading that book, I think it was probably after that or slightly before, but I never used the word picnic again.
That's right.
Yeah.
Never use that word again. Exactly. So
I always ask my guests, and I feel that this is really important. Words of encouragement, wisdom to the younger generation to this before we close out.
Stop being scared.
Yeah. Minister Tracy?
Well, remember a couple of weeks ago I said, that the younger generation, and Brother Dimitri said it Sunday, you all are the generation of fulfillment. You're fearless. You are fearless, just misguided. And I say that affectionately. Not our young people are born for this time. They just need some guidance. They're fearless. They they are the generation to settle the score of our ancestors. And there's only, of course, I'm a little biased, when in terms of leadership, to give them that guidance. And I just, I unapologetically say, for the past 37 years, I have not seen or heard anyone in the Black community teach and guide our young people as effectively as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Our young people, you know how it says game, recognize game? They'll listen to Farrakhan. But most of these leaders, preachers, they won't even give them time of day. But when the minister speaks, they listen.
Thank you. This has been another amazing show. We definitely want to have you back. So this concludes the part 2 of our mental health episode.
It may have concluded part 2 and 3. We went at it today. But it's been great.
Yeah, it was great. Definitely, and I appreciate you both for being here.
We struggled to hear what you said this week, and I was sitting in the airplane. They kept saying Gate 3, and I was like, okay, well, I'm glad to be here.
I definitely appreciate you both for being here. Again, we're shooting this live at the Culture Mix Studios. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share, tell your friends about it. If you care, if you like the content and you want to donate, the information will be below in the comment section. This is a dope episode of the Brutally Opinionated Podcast.
And it was a hybrid with
the Stoop.
It may have concluded part 2 and 3. We've been at it today.